Hi, I'm Leah Ferrazzani, the owner of Ferrazzani's Pasta and Market in Pasadena, California. Here at Ferrazzani's, we make both fresh and dried pasta for you to take home and cook. We also have delicious Italian sandwiches and sauces and spreads. We're always here to feed you. So while Ferrazzani's is new, Semolina Artisanal Pasta has been here on Lincoln for 5 years. And I moved into this area first and foremost because I had a friend who owned the cafe that used to be behind me called Lincoln. It was a really great, wonderful, community-oriented neighborhood. And then I really love that it's also proximate to home. I have a kid in school here in Pasadena, and it also allows me to be a member of the community in that way as well.
So Leah, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me and tell us more about your business. So you said you had been here already for 5 years,
Yes.
And I know you've recently done a little bit of revamping. Can you tell me a little bit about that? So you started as Semolina, you're now Ferrazzani's.
Yes.
What brought about that change?
Yes. First of all, thank you for having me. It's so nice to be here. And it's nice to see you. You're such a good assistant. I started Semolina Artisanal Pasta 9.5 years ago out of my laundry room when my kids were 1 and 2.
Okay.
And eventually evolved into a small pasta factory. We made pasta for Whole Foods and Bristol Farms
Oh, wow.
and gourmet markets and cheese shops and restaurants and all that. And much of the design of the business was actually based on my family life. I wanted a food business that I could compact into daycare hours.
Oh, that makes sense.
Because I've always loved being in service. And so even my retail shop, I had very limited hours. It was when I was there. And Monday through Friday, we were closed on the weekends initially. Now my kids are 11 and 12.
Okay.
And that combined with recognizing that it was time to change format a little bit as far as our wholesale manufacturing went. It
So
felt
you
like
were
it was
producing for all of those retailers from home?
No, by the time we had all those retailers, we were in this.
I was gonna say, wow.
In a commercial environment.
Wow.
Yeah, so we had produced up to 175,000 pounds of dried pasta during COVID.
Wow.
Out of our tiny little space here in
So
Pasadena.
while some businesses were hurting, you were like,
we were growing
skyrocketing.
because everybody was cooking from home. And we stabilized after life kind of returned a little bit to normal. But the world didn't stabilize.
Right.
Markets didn't stabilize. The cost of doing business didn't stabilize. And the mental stability of running that business didn't stabilize.
Right.
And so I've spent the last year really trying to think about the things. Yeah.
Say bye.
You tell him. You saying bye? Are you saying bye? Bye. Yeah.
Say come back, guys.
The last year I spent a lot of time thinking about what work-life balance looks like, what I love about what I do.
Yes.
And the thing that I love the most is feeding people and building community.
Right.
And having the shop in its original iteration in Pasadena was giving me opportunities to create that, but we started evolving, and I think it was a little hard for people to follow along that the little pasta factory now made sandwiches, and the little pasta factory now did these other things. And so what you see now as Ferrazzani's is actually very much aligned with my original vision from 10 years ago.
Right.
That
it
would
just
have been
had to
impossible
take a natural evolution to get there.
To get there.
That's interesting. So, being new mom, as you can see, I have a toddler, and you said you have a
11 and a 12-year-old.
11 and 12-year-old. And so you started your business when they were 1. So they were very much like little babies.
Little babies.
When you decided to start the business. So what were you doing before, and what made you decide to do that transition like right in the thick of it? Because you were definitely
I was in the thick of it. So I was a food and wine writer, and I worked for a wine. My main job was for a wine retailer as their writer and editor. I worked from home. I had tons of flexibility. I could do laundry in the middle of the day. For all intents and purposes, I had a really great job for being a working mother.
Right.
and a huge burst of creativity when my children were born, but also a real need for figuring out my identity as somebody other than their mom.
And having children will do that. It absolutely does that. That like 1 to 2 year period, once you have kids, it's like you're having this like awakening, this shifting, and you're like, okay, who I was before I'm not that person anymore. And so it's like a rediscovery.
There was a lot. I think there was a lot of that. And, you know, I think some moms like fully realize themselves, and like being mom feels like that is the all-encompassing part. And for me, it was not that.
Right.
Like, I love being my kid's mom, but I had always had a creative outlet, and I needed it. Crawling out of me. And so, trying to figure out how to balance those two drives. And I'd been in food and wine my entire life, and really love the act of service. I love feeding people. It's been my love language since I was a little kid. And so I think it was natural for me to end up in food, but I actually knew nothing about pasta production when I started my business.
Interesting.
So I was really noticing as a mom, I was relying on my pantry a lot more, and couldn't find certified organic dried pasta that was made in the States that was good. Everything was imported from Italy.
Right.
And I started doing some research. I found out that we export about half the durum wheat that we grow in the U.S. to Italy for them to make into pasta,
to ship it back,
to send back.
That's funny. That
felt rather ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so while I'm not a trained culinary professional, I love to cook, and I have always considered myself somebody who can hone a craft. And being a pasta maker felt like honing a craft, right? Something where like a ceramicist, you get your 10,000 hours and you kind of become one with the thing. And so it felt like a natural extension. I came downstairs while I was on maternity leave with my second, and I said to my husband, I'm like, I think I want to start a dried pasta business. And he's like, really? What do you know about that? And I was like, absolutely nothing. And he's like, you should do that then. And I was like, okay, I will.
Wow.
And I did.
Honestly, I feel like the best ideas are birthed out of just a place of just full creative freedom. Right.
And, you know, having a really supportive partner who especially at such a challenging time in our family life, who just was like, you do what makes you happy, right?
That's great.
And you know, it's really fun to have that name up on the wall now, you know, and get to share the Ferrazzani story in that way, because...
And is Ferrazzani, is that Italian?
It's Italian.
So you
and
have
it's
Italian background, or your husband?
My husband.
Okay.
I'm what we call an IBM. I'm Italian by marriage.
Ah, gotcha.
But I wanted to be Italian since I was 5. I grew up on Long Island in New York.
That's like me in French. I'm like, I'm French by association.
There you go. I mean, I think sometimes you really connect with the culture you're born with, and sometimes you have to search a little outside of yourself. And for me, it was a little bit outside of myself.
So I'm sure his family is thrilled then.
His family is thrilled, and it's been really fun helping his father in particular get to rediscover things that he hasn't had since he was or since he was a kid. So like there's so many lovely connections for me, and this version of the business gets to kind of engage every single part of myself, because now I'm getting to connect with recipes that I like. I always loved to talk to people about cooking when they came into the store, but now I get to make some of those things for them. You know, you can come in and you can have my biscotti, and you can come in and like recipes that I've been developing as like for the family for years.
And I like how you have it set up where you can kind of see the operation going as you're like shopping, and you can kind of see the very organic, homemade nature of everything that you're doing there. So you can see it's like done in house. That's great.
And I think it's really important. One of the things as a mom feeding kids, and just as an eater in general, is I want to feel connected to the food that I make. And you know, it's why I love the farmers market. It's why I like to cook in the first place. I want to know what's in what I'm eating.
Right.
And so being able to give people that perspective,
Right.
and like, this is made here,
Mhm.
right? Like, these are the people who are making your
Yep.
food, and it's not in some like factory somewhere that you.
It's right here.
It's right here.
Right here. That's
And
awesome.
so it's really, that makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love that. So in terms of the business that you have now,
Yeah.
so you evolved from just selling the dried pastas to now actually being a market. So you can purchase. Tell me about the menu that you have now.
So Ferrazzani's is a pasta shop and market. So you can buy our fresh pastas, which used to only really be available at the restaurants that we made them for.
Okay.
You can buy those by weight. So you're also not limited to any predetermined portion. You can buy as much or as little as you need, which is great. So if you're feeding one person, if you're feeding one person, you can buy a quarter pound of pasta. If you're feeding 12 people, you can buy 3 pounds of pasta. And it makes it a little bit more flexible and accessible. And then we have sandwiches every day. They're unique and simple on Bub and Grandma's baguettes. We love supporting other local businesses whenever we can. And so we think that the Bub's family makes some of the best bread in the city. So Bub and Grandma's baguettes, and cheese from Gioia Cheese Company, which is based in Almonte. They're
so everything is local. That's great. That's great.
Our pistachios for our pistachio spread come from Santa Barbara. Our walnuts come from Northern California. But we're constantly like trying our best to both use local ingredients and highlight local producers whenever we can.
And California really is the place to do that, because everything is produced here in California.
It is. It makes it easy to do that.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So what would you say is like your goal for the business, like in the next 5 years? Like, what are you hoping to see with your business?
Even just in the near future, we recently launched take and bake lasagnas and take and bake stuffed shells. Currently only available on Saturdays, but I just bought a freezer, so we should be able to have those more often. I think that the overarching goal is to feed more people and find more ways to feed more people. I love having people cook, and I love teaching people how to cook from scratch, but I also recognize we all have busy lives. And so finding ways to make life easier for other people, while still
mom life.
Mom life.
Yes.
Exactly. But like still being nourishing, right? Like,
exactly.
I want you to come in and get a lasagna, and like every single thing on the ingredient list is like, oh, this is like I made it at home. And so you feel good feeding that to your family, because that's what I need as a parent, right? Like, I need to, of course. That's what I need as a parent. I need to know that the food that I'm feeding, if I'm not making every last bit of it, is still made
good
with whole
family,
food and quality ingredients, and it's good for the littles that I'm feeding and the bigs that I'm feeding too.
That's awesome. And so, do you have anything exciting happening, like any promotions or anything that's going to be coming up in the next few months?
We're just trying to cycle in lots of new products. So I haven't really had any bandwidth to work on promotional things. We're a very small team. We have 4 people right now. I'm expanding to 6. I'm hiring a new pasta maker because my dear pasta maker is moving. So there's a lot of transition at the shop, obviously, also with the new format. So the next couple months, I think, is just finding ways to get our new products out and find new ways to feed people, and then lots of fun things down the line.
My husband and I, we went to Italy in 2019. And we got to we went to Rome, we went to Sorrento, Capri. We did
lovely. Yeah.
It was really beautiful, and I have to say, that's probably one of the best cuisines I've had. Just eating over there, just anywhere you went, the local mom and pop place, everything was just so fresh. It just tasted so good.
So good. So fresh. I mean, I think the ethos of Italian food in general, right, is keep it simple. And it's all about the ingredients. So if you start with really high quality foundational ingredients, you don't have to do things super complicated. Oh, there you go. You don't have to chef it up. And that's, for me, as both as a home cook, but as somebody who's sharing that love of food with people when they walk through the door, you know, it's like, all right, like this is, let me give you some garlic confit. We've already taken care of that, right? It's just poached in olive oil with a little bit of rosemary and arbol chili, and you take that garlic confit and you toss it with your pasta and some pasta water and a little lemon juice.
You can go home and feel like a little chef. I love it. I love it.
But not the version that's slaved over the stove.
Right.
You know, there's a time and a place for Sunday sauce that gets cooked for hours and hours.
Yes.
But amatriciana takes 20 minutes.
Right.
Right? And it's a lot of bang for your buck in flavor, in, you know, deliciousness, and so much easier to make.
I love it.
So, you know, I like to share those things because as a working mom, I need dinner to be
quick,
ready most of the time, very quickly.
That is me. That is I. Yes.
And our fresh pasta cooks in 2 minutes.
Oh, that's great.
So it takes longer to boil the water.
Okay. Yeah, I love it.
Well, I appreciate your having me. Pasadena and Altadena are such a really special community. I love being a part of the neighborhood.
Yeah, I'm from Altadena, grew up like literally just up Lincoln. My mom grew up here. She went to Muir. Like, so we're locals. And I think that is what was really important to me about doing this show.
Yeah.
And just really highlighting, you know, all the wonderful things we have here. I mean, our community in Pasadena and Altadena is just really, really great.
It
and
really is.
I think it's just nice to be able to showcase like all that we have here. You know, I always tell people like Pasadena is one of those places that you move to and you really don't have to go anywhere else because we pretty much have everything you need here. Like I know even growing up, I rarely ventured out to Pasadena because everything was here, you know, and like even now I'm like there's so many places to go and try. You never really have to leave the city, you know.
You don't. And then you have the gift of like, well, for me, like I walk into the back parking lot and I just stare at the mountains during the golden hour.
It's beautiful.
And I'm just like,
yeah, it's beautiful.
So lovely.
Yeah, I couldn't live anywhere else. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Leah, for giving us your time.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being such a good assistant. You did a very good job.
I made it.
You did
Just made it. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure to leave a comment or send me a message on where we should go next.